I never thought I'd be the woman standing between a billionaire and his racist mother. But when James proposed to me, his mother Patricia made it clear she'd destroy our love before letting a black woman into her family. What happened at our wedding still gives me chills. Hey, beautiful souls. Before I share the most intense story of my life, please hit that subscribe button and ring that notification bell. This story about love, racism, and standing up for yourself needs to be heard. Now let me tell you how I almost lost the love of my life. My name is Naomi Williams, and 2 years ago, I was just a 29-year-old civil rights attorney living my best life in Los Angeles. I had my own successful practice, a beautiful apartment in downtown LA, and I was fighting for justice every single day. Money had never been my motivation. I grew up in a middle-class family where my parents taught me that success came from hard work and helping others. I was content with my life, focused on my career, and honestly, I wasn't even looking for love. That all changed on a warm September evening at a charity gala for education reform. I was there representing some of my clients, families fighting for better schools in underserved communities. The ballroom was filled with LA's elite, people writing checks to feel good about themselves. But I was there for a different reason. I was there to make sure these donations actually reached the kids who needed them most. That's when I saw him across the room. James Carter. Even if you don't follow tech news, you've probably heard his name. At 32, he was worth $2.3 billion from his software company that revolutionized how hospitals manage patient data. But what caught my attention wasn't his wealth. It was the way he was actually listening to a young student talk about her school's broken computers, not just nodding politely like everyone else. When our eyes met, something electric happened. He excused himself from his conversation and walked straight over to me. "You're Naomi Williams," he said, and I was surprised he knew my name. "I've been following your work on the Rodriguez case. What you did for that family was incredible." He wasn't trying to impress me with his money or status. He was talking about my work, my passion. That's when I knew he was different. We talked for hours that night about justice, about using privilege responsibly, about our shared dream of a world where every child gets a fair chance. James told me how his wealth came with guilt, how he'd grown up in a bubble and was trying to use his resources to make a real difference. We laughed, we debated, and by the end of the night, I knew I wanted to see him again. Our first real date was at a small Ethiopian restaurant in Little Ethiopia. James could have taken me to the fanciest place in Beverly Hills, but he asked what I wanted, and I chose somewhere that reminded me of the community I served. He showed up in jeans and a simple t-shirt, and we talked until the restaurant closed. He told me about his childhood, how his father had died when he was young, and how his mother Patricia had raised him alone. He spoke about her with such love and respect that it made me fall for him even harder. For 18 months, we were inseparable. James would come to my court hearings, cheering me on from the back row. I'd attend his business dinners, helping him stay grounded in what really mattered. He funded a scholarship program for kids from my neighborhood, and I helped him vet charities to make sure his donations had real impact. We were partners in every sense of the word. When James proposed to me on the beach in Malibu, with the sunset painting the sky orange and pink, I thought I was living in a fairy tale. He got down on one knee and said, "Naomi, you've made me a better man. You've shown me what it means to fight for something bigger than myself. Will you marry me and let me spend the rest of my life supporting your dreams?" I said yes without hesitation, thinking our biggest challenge would be planning a wedding. I was so wrong. The first time James brought me to meet his mother, I was nervous but excited. Patricia Carter lived in a mansion in Bel Air, the kind of place you see in movies. James had told me so much about her, how she'd sacrificed everything to help him build his company, how she was his closest advisor, how much her approval meant to him. I dressed carefully, choosing a conservative navy dress and pearls, wanting to make a good impression. Patricia opened the door herself, and I'll never forget that moment. Her smile was perfect, practiced, but her eyes went cold the second she saw me. "So you're Naomi," she said, extending a hand for the weakest handshake I'd ever received. "James has told me so much about you." But the way she said it made it clear that what she'd heard hadn't impressed her. Throughout dinner, Patricia asked me question after question, each one designed to make me feel small. "And what do your parents do?" she asked, as if my father being a teacher and my mother being a nurse wasn't good enough. "How interesting that you work in civil rights," she said, like she was saying something distasteful. "I'm sure that's very rewarding." Every compliment was backhanded, every question was a test, and I could feel James growing more uncomfortable by the minute. But what really got to me was her comment as we were leaving. "Naomi dear," she said, putting her hand on my arm, "I hope you understand that James's life is very complicated. He has responsibilities, expectations. I do hope you're not the type of girl who would try to change him." The message was clear. I didn't belong in their world, and she was going to make sure I knew it. That night, James apologized for his mother's behavior. "She's just protective," he said. "She'll warm up to you once she gets to know you." I wanted to believe him, but I could see the doubt in his eyes. He knew his mother's behavior wasn't normal, but he wasn't ready to face what it really meant. Things got worse after our engagement was announced. Patricia went into full attack mode, and her first weapon was a private investigator. James found out when the man approached my law firm, asking questions about my client list, my finances, my personal life. My colleagues were confused and concerned. Why was someone investigating me? Was I in danger? When James confronted his mother, she didn't even try to deny it. "I'm protecting you," she told him. "You don't really know this girl. What if she's after your money? What if she has debts you don't know about? I'm just being careful." But James knew better. The investigator hadn't been looking for financial problems. He'd been digging for anything that could be used to embarrass me, to make me look bad. That's when I realized this wasn't just about being protective. This was about control, and it was about race. Patricia had never had a problem with James's previous girlfriends, all of whom had been white, wealthy, and from good families. But a black woman from a working-class background, that was unacceptable. The harassment escalated. Patricia started calling other family members, James's aunts and uncles, painting me as a gold digger who was manipulating her son. She sent anonymous letters to my law firm, questioning my ethics and professionalism. My boss called me into his office, confused and concerned about the complaints he was receiving about my work. I had to explain that my boyfriend's mother was trying to sabotage my career, which was humiliating and surreal. But the cruelest blow came when Patricia requested a private meeting with me. She invited me to lunch at an exclusive country club, and I thought maybe finally she wanted to make peace. Instead, she made me an offer that still makes my blood boil. "I'll give you $2 million to walk away from my son," she said, sliding a check across the table. "You're a smart girl. You can see this isn't going to work. Take the money, disappear, and everyone wins." I stared at that check, feeling sick to my stomach. Not because I was tempted, I would never take money to abandon love, but because this woman thought so little of me that she believed I could be bought. "Mrs. Carter," I said, keeping my voice steady, "I love your son. I'm not going anywhere." I tore up the check and left her sitting there, furious and humiliated. That night, I cried in James's arms. The stress was getting to me. I was losing weight, having trouble sleeping, and worst of all, I was starting to doubt myself. Maybe I didn't belong in James's world. Maybe Patricia was right, and I was just causing problems for everyone. But James held me tight and promised he wouldn't let his mother destroy what we had. The wedding planning became a nightmare. Patricia had connections everywhere, and she used them to sabotage our plans. Vendors would mysteriously cancel our bookings, claiming scheduling conflicts or family emergencies. Our florist backed out 2 weeks before the wedding, saying she couldn't handle such a high-profile event. Our caterer suddenly doubled his prices, hoping we'd cancel. Each time we found alternatives, But the message was clear. Patricia was going to make our wedding as difficult as possible. James finally confronted his mother directly. "Stop," he told her. "Stop trying to ruin this for us. Naomi is going to be my wife, and if you can't accept that, then you're not welcome in our lives." Patricia's response was devastating. "Then you're choosing her over your family. Don't come crying to me when she breaks your heart and takes half your money." The ultimatum broke something in James. This was the woman who had raised him, who had been his biggest supporter, and now she was asking him to choose between her and the woman he loved. I told him I would understand if he needed time, if he wanted to postpone the wedding, but he surprised me with his strength. "No," he said, "I'm not letting her win. We're getting married. And if she wants to be part of our life, she needs to apologize and change." The morning of our wedding, I was in my bridal suite with my bridesmaids, trying to focus on the joy of the day. My dress was perfect, my makeup was flawless, and I should have been the happiest woman in the world. That's when Patricia burst in without knocking, her face twisted with rage. "You have some nerve," she spat at me. "You think you can just waltz into our family and take over? You think you belong here?" My bridesmaids tried to step between us, but Patricia kept going. "You'll never be one of us. You'll always be an outsider, always trying to prove you're good enough. Is that how you want to live your life?" For a moment, I wavered. Standing there in my wedding dress, surrounded by luxury I'd never dreamed of, I felt like an imposter. Maybe she was right. Maybe I was fooling myself thinking I could fit into James's world. But then I remembered who I was. A woman who had fought for justice her entire life, who had never backed down from a challenge, who deserved love and respect just like anyone else. "Mrs. Carter," I said, my voice stronger than I felt, "I'm not trying to take over anything. I'm just trying to love your son. And if you can't see that, then that's your loss, not mine." Patricia's face went red with fury. "We'll see about that," she said, and stormed out. I sank into a chair, shaking, wondering if she had some final trick up her sleeve. Walking down the aisle should have been the happiest moment of my life. The church was filled with roses and candles. Our friends and family were smiling, and James looked absolutely gorgeous in his tuxedo. But as I made my way toward him, I could see Patricia in the front row, her face cold and calculating. Just as I reached the altar, she stood up. "Stop!" she shouted, her voice echoing through the church. "I object to this wedding." The entire congregation gasped. This was something you see in movies, not real life. "This woman is not suitable for my son. She's a gold digger, a social climber, and she's going to ruin his life." The silence was deafening. I felt every eye in the church on me, judging, wondering if there was truth to her words. My heart was pounding so hard, I thought it might explode. This was my worst nightmare coming true. But then James stepped forward, and his voice cut through the tension like a sword. "Mother, sit down and be quiet, or leave." His voice was calm, but steel hard. "You've embarrassed yourself enough." Patricia was clearly shocked that her son was defying her so publicly. "James, you don't understand." "No, you don't understand," James interrupted, turning to face the congregation. "I want everyone here to hear this. Naomi Williams is the most incredible woman I've ever met. She's brilliant, she's kind, she fights for people who can't fight for themselves. She makes me want to be a better man every single day. And if my mother can't see that, if she can't accept the woman I love because of the color of her skin, then that's her problem, not ours." The church was so quiet, you could hear a pin drop. James took my hands and looked into my eyes. "Naomi, I choose you. I choose our love. I choose our future. And I'm sorry it took me so long to say this publicly, but I will never let anyone, including my mother, disrespect you again." Patricia's face went through a range of emotions: shock, anger, humiliation. She looked around the church, seeing the judgment in people's eyes, realizing that her mask had finally slipped, and everyone could see who she really was. Without another word, she grabbed her purse and walked out, her heels clicking on the marble floor. The moment the door closed behind her, the entire church erupted in applause. People were standing, cheering, crying. James kissed me right there at the altar, and I knew that no matter what happened next, we had won. We had chosen love over hate, and we had done it together. Our wedding reception was the most beautiful night of my life. Without Patricia's toxic presence, everyone relaxed and celebrated with genuine joy. James's father's brother, Uncle Robert, came up to me with tears in his eyes. "Naomi," he said, "I want you to know that most of us are ashamed of Patricia's behavior. You're exactly the kind of woman this family needs. Someone with integrity and strength. Welcome to the family." James gave the most beautiful speech during dinner. He talked about how I had changed his life, how I had shown him what it meant to use privilege responsibly, how our love had made him braver. "My wife," he said, and I got chills hearing him call me that for the first time, "has taught me that love isn't just about finding someone who makes you happy. It's about finding someone who makes you better, someone worth fighting for." That was 2 years ago, and I can honestly say, our marriage has only gotten stronger. James kept his word. He cut contact with his mother completely. She's reached out a few times, trying to apologize, but her apologies always come with conditions. "I accept your wife, but..." There are no buts. Either she accepts me completely and treats me with respect, or she doesn't get to be part of our lives. We've built something beautiful together. James funded a legal clinic in my old neighborhood, and I run it while still maintaining my private practice. We've helped hundreds of families fight for their rights, and we've proven that love can create real change in the world. We're expecting our first child in the spring, a little girl who will grow up knowing that her parents chose love over hate, that they fought for their happiness and won. Some people ask me if I regret putting James in the position of choosing between his mother and me. The truth is, I never asked him to choose. Patricia created that situation with her racism and her need to control. I just refused to accept being treated poorly, and I'm glad I did. If I had backed down, if I had let her win, what would that have taught me about my own worth? What would it have taught our future children? I want every woman listening to this to understand something. You deserve love that fights for you. You deserve a partner who will stand up for you, who will choose you even when it's hard, who will never let anyone disrespect you because of who you are or where you come from. Don't settle for anything less. And if you're facing someone like Patricia in your own life, remember that their hatred says nothing about you and everything about them. You don't have to prove your worth to people who've already decided not to see it. You just have to know your worth yourself and refuse to accept anything less than the respect you deserve. That's my story, and I'm sharing it because too many of us stay silent about racism, even in 2025. If this story resonated with you, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe for more real stories about love, life, and standing up for what's right. Remember, you deserve love that fights for you. Until next time, keep shining.